let's just move on. Brian, I don't know if you've got an opinion about this, but yeah, how will technology influence in innovating sort of newer customer experience? While SMEs try to outperform the their competition, what do you think will happen there?
Again, Karthik's touched on it earlier. In terms of what you can do in the cloud now, there are so many new applications being developed all the time. Everyone's looking to outperform their competitors, take the next advantage and everything else. The downside to this is there are so many options out there for businesses to choose. So having that the right knowledge, the right skills in place that Karthik again just touched on there is difficult, and it is something that businesses are going to have to start thinking more and more about moving forward. Their competitors are going to become more advanced, so standing still isn't really going to be an option for you. Realistically, I can see a lot of businesses getting additional external resource in. Not many SMEs that I've worked with so far have that internal skill set ready to go, that somebody can go, right, we need to achieve this project, we need to reach a new market, we need to develop a new app, a new product, a new software system. Not many businesses have those skills in-house. So actually, I can see that working. People are going to become more and more comfortable with working with outsourced partners, working with additional development resource that perhaps prior to the pandemic just wasn't available, and people had this element of fear. And I think the pandemic actually changed a lot of people's minds and a lot of working practices, that actually outsourcing work and having that wider talent pool available is going to be a big thing moving forward. And I think businesses are going to have to adapt with that. Yeah,
and I think they all, you made some good point. I think businesses are already sort of making changes. Yes, the pandemic did sort of change everything. All of a sudden, everything was possible, whereas a few years before, people say it'd be impossible to do it this way, or have doctors, speak to you rather than go and see them face to face, and then all of a sudden video came along. So lots of things have changed, and that's obviously helped SMEs. Karthik, I want to move on and just talk a little bit about the cloud, particularly. I know that's a big area for you guys. So what do you think the benefits of cloud adoption for SMEs is? What's happening during this huge transition?
See, the obvious reason is cost, Mike, but then I'm not going to elaborate on that, because everybody knows that cloud allows you to kind of convert your fixed cost into variable cost. That everybody knows that, right? But then, as I touched base a few minutes back, see, the main point here is, especially for 2023, where there is a bit of uncertainty, right? Everybody is talking about data-driven decisions, right? Again, when it comes to data-driven decisions, we also need to understand that, there are lots of data that is moving into cloud, right? So today, the data does not just, sit only in the traditional transaction systems, right? You never know where the data is going to come from. The data is going to come from your social handles, the data is going to come from, some data that sits on your, analog data structures, right? You never know, right? But then, there is there is an increased search towards, putting everything on cloud. But then that is where, I would say, if you look at the kind of, the data pipeline services that are available in cloud, which allows you to kind of ingest all this data real time, and then, by applying just, some advanced analytics, it helps you in kind of, decisioning, right? So the kind of decision enablement, that cloud can enable today is humongous, because in fact, within our cloud organization here, we have a separate service line that we call as data ops, where a lot of stuff goes around that. So that is an important point. The other one is definitely this year, definitely this hybrid model is going to stay, right? So in terms of how the distributed teams can collaborate, both within their organization and also with the customers, that's going to become handy. And also, with data becoming one of the important point, comes the compliance requirement as well, right? Yeah. Especially around regulated industries, right? But then, these, I mean, because, if you look at all of these, major cloud ecosystem, they have this, so-called shared responsibility model where they have the basic prerequisites with regards to compliance already met, which will allow, service providers like us to have, jump start. Right, when we go and try to put in a solution for regulated industries, we don't have to start from the scratch, right? So there's a quicker enablement that we can do. So these are all some of the advantages that I can think of. Leaving aside the cost as one of the underlying benefit.
Okay, no, thanks for that. This one's for you, Rory. Just a very quick. I'm mindful of time, but in terms of working from home during the pandemic, you've hinted, that obviously things had changed. But what about the present hybrid models? What are the challenges for the SMEs?
I think there are lots of challenges, and one of the main ones, which I was thinking about just as Brian and Karthik were speaking, was bringing in, whether it's a hybrid system or a mainstream system or a cloud-based conglomerate or whatever. What I'm noticing from my position as a kind of consultant or project manager is while this is happening, the staff training on these systems is often failing. Even in the biggest company, very, very quick example, I was doing work for DHL Logistics, the 7th biggest company in the world. They introduced a time management system for 100,000 staff, launched it, and I was called in because no one was using it. No one understood how to use it, and the training was so appalling that that all this massive amount of money spent on this particular system, which was integrated with all the other DHL systems at a cost, fell apart completely, just simply down to the fact that the staff were not being trained properly. And that's often overlooked when we get focused on bringing in new dashboards, new data management systems, new interfaces. Unless you train your staff well, doesn't matter what you've bought, it's not going to work properly. And I think that's a big issue.
And it does come down to, you can do all these things, but if you can provide the policies, the procedures, the systems, but if you don't train the people, sort of again, that's rather like putting a lot of money that's going to be wasted. Again, as I say, I'm mindful of time, so I wanted to move on and bring Karthik back into the conversation and just talk about some of the best practices for developing a comprehensive technology adoption roadmap for SMEs. Could you just give us a few, some thoughts, please, Karthik?
Sure, Mike. Definitely, to begin with, we don't have to, look at 2023 in isolation. The best thing is to, extend from the previous year, right? So that, some of your priorities gets continued. And then with regards to deciding on new priorities, don't take any new priorities unless there is a compelling reasons to go for it, right? And then with regards to, defined priorities, I think, it's always better, you define some, midterm objectives and align your release plans in line with the, midterm objectives that you define. So it cannot be like, two different, they cannot, definitely operate in silos. Instead, you need to have midterm objectives, and then, all your application releases needs to align with your, midterm objectives, so that, you can kind of incrementally build your platforms and applications that will have a GTM alignment, right? And then as I previously said, you definitely need to have a proper integration plan, because integration will be the key challenge, because it needs a bit of change management. And as we all know, change is always a tough thing to embrace, right? So you definitely need to have an integration plan. And as you put more and more applications and data into the cloud, you also need to have a deeper expertise being developed in your infra and IT operations. So you need to have plans for adequately equipping your staff with those cloud ops or DevOps capabilities. That is pretty important. And finally, definitely, as Rory said, definitely skill training, right? But skill training becomes part of integration plan, but then that is definitely a point to be touch base. Now these are if we can address that, this can definitely become a good roadmap for embracing any new technologies.
So really, I mean, sort of what we're talking about there is having those clear objectives right at the beginning, know where you're going, know what you're going to do, and measure yourself against those, I'm guessing. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Thanks. And I don't know, just throw this open just very quickly to Rory and Brian. I don't know if there may not be, but just wondered if you've got any further thoughts on that before we talk more about just some generic views that you might have before we close up and start asking, seeing if anyone's got any questions.
Well, one thing Karthik mentioned quite rightly was the importance of change management, and I definitely endorse that. Change management in any kind of plan is key, and having it well structured. The other thing, last point, is I think the maxim of quality over quantity is a good maxim to have, because far too many SMEs focus on a quantity-based viewpoint rather than a quality-based. And I think if you start from a place of looking at what quality you want to get as the end result of what you're doing technically, that's key.
Okay. No, and again, all valid points. I mean, change management, driving people across the cloud sort of helps on one side, but I mean, change management absolutely important. And any last thoughts before I just move on to the last point, Brian?
So yeah, just to basically sum up there, I think the key things really are you've got to be really definitive with your plan, know what you want to achieve, and make sure you know what your KPIs are. Otherwise, really, you could be spending money without the time, the knowledge, and the resource to know how to spend it properly. You've got a plan. Make sure you're planning. Make sure everything is set in stone. Make sure you know exactly what you need to achieve.
Okay, no, and brilliant, thank you. I'm just going to come to the last question before we open it up. What is, and this is to everyone on the panel, what are some of the obstacles SMEs face during their technology adoption journey, and how can they overcome them? Any thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I touched on it earlier. Fear of failure is a big one for me. So many companies don't do anything or are afraid to do anything because they have a lack of resource or knowledge and expertise. So there's that fear of failure that stops them, puts these barriers up before they go anywhere. Again, it's just, I think there's going to be a big change, and that it's already started happening. Companies are doing it. Your competitors will be doing it already. It's getting that skill set in-house. If you don't have it in-house already, it's finding the people to work with who can bring that knowledge and that experience in. Once you know what you want to do, how you want to achieve it, you've got to find the right people to bring in to help you achieve those goals.
Okay, no, thank you for that, Brian.
And for me, on that journey that you just described, Mike, I think it's my key tip for number one would be involve all the staff. Don't just let the management team design the plan and implement the plan and roll out things. Talk to all the people that are involved who are going to be operating those systems and working with them day to day. They all have an important input.
Okay, thank you. And across to you, Karthik.
Yeah, I mean, apart from whatever points we just discussed, Mike, I mean, definitely, the level of digitization that happens along with digital, that is also critical, because, digital helps you to modernize or, automate your workflows. But then if more information continues to stay in analog mode, definitely, I mean, you are deprived of, necessary real-time insights. So, our digitization equally needs to go along with digital, right? So, that is something that I could, comment here, because I have seen this as part of one of our major implementation that we did for, number one, tire manufacturing company here in India. So, so that's a key takeaway that we have, that I would like to share.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And I just want to open this up to everyone. We've got 5 minutes to do to have some questions. If you want to pop them in the chat, that would be the easiest way. If you do have questions, I just wanted, and while you're thinking about that, I just wanted to go back to one other area that we started to cover, but things like dashboards and data analytics and predictive analytics, things like that. These are all now so available to the SMEs, whereas a few years ago it just wasn't there. Fortunately, with particularly Microsoft with Power BI and all the Power products, they make life sort of so much easier for the SMEs, and of course the SMEs can benefit. Once they've got the dashboards in, they can benefit from some of the predictive analytics and the alerts if certain things are happening. Send an email, send a text, or whatever it might be. And of course, it also means that they can then start making decisions based on their data rather than emotional decisions, which seem to happen so often, particularly in the not only the smaller companies, not only the larger companies, but also the smaller companies. So I think it's important to realise that the technology that we're all adopting right now, larger companies have been doing it, but it really is available to smaller organisations, and you can see some fantastic wins as well once you plan your project, you get the right people, and you can actually then be even more competitive. Now, nobody's brave enough at the moment, it seems, to be asking any questions. Let's just go around the panel. Was there anything else, as nobody seems to have too many questions, was there anything else that you'd like to add in your